Hey there everyone, Luke here. Now, before we talk about this week's Doctor Stone chapter, I just want to go back to a moment in the last chapter that I stupidly. Now, I'm not the only one that forgot about this, but a bunch of other people forgot about this. It was one review that I saw on YouTube, which actually brought to attention this little panel right here. Can I angle it right? Yeah, that one little panel of that flash of light in Ishigami Village after the petrification ray came about. So yeah, something is going on there, but that's something we're gonna have to figure out later on when we actually cut back to Ishigami Village, or if we actually go back to Ishigami Village once everyone has been revived. But for now, one second. I cannot but wonder if this one particular character is going to play an important role in this chapter. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Mumbly jumbly. Yes, this is a Suika chapter. These are the kind of chapters that I enjoy the most, because obviously Suika is my favourite character, and just getting her moment to shine. Basically, her starting off the arc as being the only character. Actually, that raises the question: would you guys consider this chapter part of the South America arc, even though they're technically still in South America? But would you still count this as a separate arc? Because at this point, I think it's safe to say that this could technically necessarily be considered a new arc. Whatever it's going to be called, we'll just have to make that see as it comes on. But yeah, I personally consider this a new arc because it's obviously reset itself because of the whole petrification do light up. But yeah, Suika starting off this arc, or this portion of the story, as what people have been saying as the new main character of Doctor Stone, which I'm not complaining about, but she has to have a lot more screen time for her to have that distinction of the new main character. Maybe 2 or 3 more chapters. Yeah, she is the new main character, but she's one of the best female main characters, as people on Discord were saying earlier. Aside from characters from Undead Unluck and possibly Ayakashi Triangle, but yeah, I can't argue with that. So let's just get into this chapter, which is chapter 194, titled Homo Sapiens All Alone. Quite a depressing chapter title if you really think about it. But anyway, it starts off with an image of Suika's statue just in the position of where she was in the tower, as we see roots sprouting up all around her, indicating again more time is being passed, and we see the area and the land changing, range from Ishigami Village to Sinu's Castle to Treasure Island, where we see an image on Treasure Island of Amaryllis. We get. For some reason, Amaryllis' head is getting sprouting greenery on there. I have no idea what that is. But anyway, the biggest point here is that we get the image of Ishigami Village, where we see one of the huts actually sort of like weavering and collapsing because obviously there's no humans around to actually maintain its structure. So obviously it's going to collapse in the same way what happened to structures when the original petrification beam happened. But anyway. Of course, we see that the cows are surviving and everything, and again, makes me wonder why it's only working on humans, but not monkeys, which we are descended from, or any other animal. That's kind of a thing that we have to actually figure out. Like, why is this petrification beam happening only on humans but not other animals? But anyway, cut back over to Fort Medusa, where we see that Suika is being engulfed by the actual roots and branches and trees and everything, as we see that the little microphone that they used to create the bang sound to distract Stanley's guys, that's still working and intact. So it's nice to see that some of their adventures are actually still working and intact. Now, I'm going to get to a theory about the Perseus later on in this chapter, because I have a theory based on the parallels that are being seen here from when Senku woke up way back at the beginning of the series. But continuing on, we see that the microphone little microphone fake gun sound is being used as we see a leopard roaring at it before we see its roar causing or well, it says but it's a roar. Come on, it's a roar, guys. As we see that affecting the revival fluid itself, which is causing it to actually crack under the pressure that it's actually on from the sound wave that's actually coming in its way. As we cut over to Ishigami and Ferge, where we see Chalk, bless his little heart, still thinking back on Suika and thinking of her as his master, as pets do when they know they've been loved. I was seeing him howling to the moon, calling out for Suika, and before we know it, as Suika-san is being completely engulfed by the greenery, we see the lightning strike finally happen, causing the revive fluid to crack under the pressure and revive Suika. Yay! We got one of the characters back from the petrification at last. Well, actually, it was the only character that was obviously going to come back from the petrification. And of course, Suika being Suika, we have to have that moment when she squints her eyes again, further proving that conditions that you're probably born with are not revived when are not fixed when you're actually revived. So yeah, we are getting some limitations on what the Medusa can actually do, as we see her doing her usual squinting of the eyes. Before she finally realizes what is actually going on, and she's like, "It finally happened! Suika's out of the stone. Hey everyone!" Senku, before she actually fired Senku in a similar position to what he was at the beginning of the series, where he was getting covered in greenery himself whilst he was being petrified, and he was kind of. But also, we've got to notice the actual indications of how much time has passed by. We see Senku's clothes there, and they're getting like little rips and tears in them, in the same way that we see Suika's clothes getting little rips and tears in them. So it's nice to know that a few years have been passed, but not enough for it to actually be like the clothes that have rotted away completely. And this is where Suika realizes that no one else has broken out yet. And she realizes that Suika failed, and everything seemed really bad. But in the end, Suika gets to be the one who revives everyone. Suika gets to be helpful, and she's doing it in a way where she's singing. In the end, Suika gets to be the one who revives everyone. Suika gets to be helpful because she's seen the music notes and she's being happy about it, but at the same time, you can see throughout the chapter she slowly starts to dawn on her what a burden she actually has with this task herself. And again, she's probably not thinking about the bad stuff, but about the bad stuff by using this as a way to be like, hey, at least I get to be helpful for everyone. But I feel like she does have an insane amount of guilt for what actually happened. As Suika runs off, she's debating to herself how long it's been since the petrification being sapped them all, and it's got to have been like maybe 1 year or 2 years. Yeah, but make it 3, Suika, because of the fact that we saw the different seasons and we saw at least 3 winters passing by. But she says that she's just got to sprinkle some revival fluid on them. On everyone, and then everyone will be all right. But of course, with our glasses, it's being made very difficult for her to see, and she's like debating where the revival fluid actually is. But first, she's got to find her glasses and find out where they were actually shot with standing, which she does in quite a reasonable amount of time. Now, one thing Partyjam's noted about here is that Suika is alone in this world with leopards and bugs and creatures that can actually kill her if she's not very careful. But of course, this being Dr. Stone, they've got an answer for everything, as I explained to him on Discord when we had our chat, and as I'm going to explain in the chapter review in this week. But anyway, Suika eventually does find her glasses, but realizes that they're not exactly the helmet itself is not exactly functioning as well as it used to because it was shot and broken apart. So she's going to make the best out of a worse situation as she picks up the actual glass itself and goes over to see Senku and realizes that he's not carrying any more revival fluid, and the last bottle that sprinkled on her was, and the bottle that sprinkled on her was the last one. But that means there's no fluid left, not anywhere. And this is where it actually starts to dawn on her. This is where it really hits her in the feels with Suika, as we see her stomach growling, and we see her eating what looks like beef jerky. Now, we don't have beef jerky over here in the UK, so I don't know what that tastes like. So if anyone in America wants to tell me what that tastes like, go right ahead. Also, I just want to go on a little tangent. It's quite interesting the fact that Boichi and Inagaki have been able to make a Suika chapter actually work, where she's the only one that's actually been able to carry dialogue, and the fact that she can carry a chapter on her own pretty much cements herself as an important player in this series and one of the main characters, because all the main characters in one way or another have to be able to at least carry a chapter on their own. You have Senku who's been able to do that. You have Chrome that's been able to do that when he was doing the prison break thing, how he was able to carry a chapter pretty much on his own with the only help coming from Yo, and of course now we have Suika being able to do this, and the fact that they're able to do that and be able to show that yes, these characters, even though they have their limitations, they can all carry chapters completely by themselves. And again, I love moments like this, because we see her eating the beef jerky and going, always so hungry. Once these last bits of food are gone, Suika will starve to death. Suika's gonna die all alone. It's like, it's okay, Suika. It's okay. And then you see it just like get to her, like the sheer realization that she is all alone in this world. No one else is there with her, and she starts bawling her eyes out for everyone and begging them to wake up. And she goes through three people that are probably going to be the three people that she's going to revive first, where you hear her saying, cook up some food, Francois, tell me what to do, Senku. But it's funny when she does that, you actually see Senku's face, and it's actually got a smile on its face, so it could very well be interpreted as Senku saying that he left that smile to give her some hope of like, I know you can do it, Suika, and I have faith in you. But the biggest one is give Suika a hug, Kohaku, and it's like, she's probably going to give you the biggest hug when she wakes up, as she goes on to say, it's really hard being all alone in the world. I feel you, Suika. I feel you. But also another thing that I want to say about that being all alone in this world, that's actually could be considered a reference to when Senku woke up and he was like, I'm all alone in this world. Or back on Treasure Island where he says, again, I'm all alone in this world. Only when he was on Treasure Island, that time he had Ruri calling him, and it's like, no, this time I'm not alone. And this is when Suika actually gets that realization herself, as we get a flashback of when Senku first woke up. Okay, Senku had to have told Suika about all of this with the monkeys and the fire at some point for her to be having this image popping up in her head. Unless No, this is actually a flashback. So Senku obviously told her about this, because otherwise, why would she be having this flashback if she wasn't there to witness it? But he goes on to get Senku going, I am human, and this is kind of like the will of Senku being passed down to Suika, kind of like in the same way Senku's will of science, when he said way back in the middle of the arc that it doesn't matter if you're a criminal or a good person or a bad person, science is open to everyone. And that's kind of like what is happening here, where where he's basically passing on the will of Suika that you're human and you are capable of incredible things, just like me. As Suika goes on to say, Senku was also all alone at the start. He didn't even know if anyone else could wake up, and this is where she's actually realizes, I've got to be brave. I've got to be brave for everyone. I've got to be strong-willed, and be determined to actually figure out this and actually find the necessary resources to survive in this world. Now, people have been debating about whether or not we're going to get a time skip, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, where we see Suika at the end, and like how much time we think we're going to pass with her. Anyway, continuing on, Suika goes on to say, but this time Suika knows for sure that everyone can wake up with just a little revival fluid. So even if it's just like one drop, that's still enough to get someone being revived. As we see an image of all her allies just surrounding her. Granted, they're all petrified, but they're surrounding her and basically giving her the will to go on. As she says, so Suika's got to find everyone's statues because maybe someone was carrying some revival fluid. Yeah, maybe it's someone called Chelsea because the last chapter there was only one bottle that was thrown, so there might be another bottle right there in Chelsea's bag. Presuming if the bag is still intact after all this time, and Suika goes on to say they scattered all over the place, so Suika's got to bring them together no matter how long it takes. And yeah, she is pretty strong, Suika herself, because she had that big batch of greenery on her back when Senku just struggles with just one clay pot at times. But anyway, I want to talk about the actual image of all the allies here. Now, Kohaku being at the front, that makes sense because they obviously have a sisterly collection there. But Tsukasa being at the front, now a lot of people are saying like, well, Tsukasa has Miria as a brother and sister relationship, so he probably views Suika as a little sister in place of Miria. But we obviously haven't seen many interactions between Tsukasa and Suika at this point in the story. Now, Hyoga being there, he should not be there at all, even though he's technically an ally, and he did technically help Suika out when they were crossing the ravine. But no, that doesn't need to be there. Now, in all honesty, I feel like Francois and Chrome should be more at the front here. But I guess the only reason they're including Hyoga here is because they were both on the mission to actually retrieve Sinu in the first place, and we see Kazuki just having like a "Can you see me? I'm right here" moment when he's like just hiding where Kohaku's arms are, and we see Luna and Carlos and Max, but we don't see Chelsea and Taiju for some reason. Now, Senku not being there, I understand because they already had the images of Senku's will being passed down to her, so that makes sense. But Taiju not being there and Gen not being there of all people. Although that could probably be because of the fact that Suika's probably still pissed off about him for choosing the harm over the ramen at the beginning of the series, where she's like, and what's that? And he's like, that's something children don't need to be known about. Well, I think ramen's better. So yeah, she's probably still pissed off at him for that. Now we cut to the end of the chapter where we see that Suika surprisingly has built a treehouse. Yeah, she built that treehouse all by herself. On top of the tower. Now this was probably meant to be a way to keep her away from all the leopards and bugs that could potentially harm her. But also as well, it's nice that she's actually learning from the adults that have actually inspired her and given her the courage to continue on, including Senku, Chrome, Francois, because Senku obviously taught her some medicine at some point because she was the one who was able to help Charlotte out before all hell broke loose. But yeah, she obviously got some amateur doctor training from Senku in order to help Charlotte with the spider bite, and also she probably also got some training from Sinu in the fact that she was probably able to make some bug repellent in the same way that Sinu did, because she did actually ask Sinu what he was actually making and he responded with a bug repellent. So it's nice that she's actually taking everything that everyone has taught her and putting it to use here, as we see her standing on top of her treehouse with Senku boots. So yeah, she has probably made them, because some people were saying like, well, she could have taken it off Senku, but no, Senku has bigger feet than her, so they probably be a bit floppy as well. But the fact that they fit so closely pretty much proves that yeah, she actually made them herself. Before we see that the melon itself, like she's actually got half the melon out, and she's like got it underneath her. So that's with the glass in it. So it's kind of helping her out to see a little bit better, but still not as well as she did when she had the full helmet. As again we get another parallel to the beginning of the series where we get the monkey saying, "Who? Hey, what's that one monkey? Her face is so smooth." And Suika replies, "Never seen one of us before, have you? Well, my name is Suika, and Suika is a human. Food, clothes, and shelter acquired." And that's where the chapter ends. So, not a lot to say about this chapter. Pretty straightforward chapter, but amazing character development for Suika. Now, the theories that a lot of people have is the fact that it's going to be a time skip, and Suika's going to get a little bit older, which I'm kind of scared of, because it depends how much time is actually going to pass. Because if she can't find any revived fluid, she's going to have to make it from scratch herself based on what she actually remembers from Senku and everyone around her, and if she'll have the necessary tools to actually cultivate and gather it all. And it could take ages. It could take half a year for her to actually do that, or it could take well, it could take half a year for her to gather all the materials, but it could also take another half a year or 2 years to actually get it all working properly. Now, the thing that scares me the most is the fact that we won't be able to see, if she gets too old, we won't be able to see her do the they see me rolling inside a watermelon helmet, which is a real shame, because that's one of the things I love the most about Suika, the fact that she can fit inside that helmet and just roll around everywhere. But maybe this will give her a chance to develop her stealth abilities in more intricate ways, kind of take some lessons from Ukyo or Koka, depending on how old she is. But it's going to be weird if she actually grows up a lot more, and then Senku is revived, and he's like, "Wait, how old are you now, Suika?" And she's going to be like, I'm 16, 17. I'm nearly going to be 18. So yeah, that's going to be something that's going to be taking some time to getting used to. Now, another theory that I had about this chapter is the fact that we see that bag in the last chapter that Chelsea has that's not being defended. So who's to say that there wasn't a bottle of revived fluid in that bag that actually rolled out and rolled onto an unknown person? Because this chapter has so many parallels to the beginning of the series, and one of the things that happened at the beginning of the series is that we actually found out that there were more people alive other than Taiju, Yusuriya, Senku, and Tsukasa. So who's to say that the revived fluid didn't land on another person from modern time that we had no idea was there in the fort, and they're actually like, "Oh, what's happened to this world? What's going on?" And they actually found the Perseus, and they've been maintaining that ever since they revived. Before they could have potentially revived before Suika did, but that's just a wild theory. And if that actually happened, then maybe we'll actually get some I won't want to say antagonistic nature, but maybe some communication issues, because if this person is going to be revived, then they're going to be from South America. They're probably not going to understand Suika because she's from Japan, but they'll probably try to communicate as best they can. And whether or not Suika does find the revived fluid in the next chapter, that remains to be seen. But yeah, a lot of people are kind of hinting the fact that this is probably going to lead to another time skip, but we'll just have to wait and see on that front. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasher Luke signing off. Later, guys.